They didn't doubt her because she failed. They doubted her because they never thought she should be there. This is the story of how she proved them wrong. My name is Riley Dawson. When I first walked into Bravo Recon, the room didn't go quiet because they were impressed. It went quiet because they were trying to decide what joke to make first. There were a dozen men in that team bay, some polishing gear, some scrolling through messages, some leaning back in chairs like the world owed them comfort. Every face looked up, measured me in a second, and filed me into a category I hadn't earned and didn't want. A woman. A problem. A headline waiting to happen. I'd spent 2 years earning a slot most people never even got to apply for. I'd passed selection, medical, psych evaluation, and a final board interview where 3 officers stared at me like they were searching for the reason I shouldn't be there. I didn't give them one. Now I was here, standing in a bay that smelled like oil and sweat and old coffee. I wore the same uniform as everyone else. Same kit, same boots. But to them, none of that mattered. A tall sergeant with a shaved head glanced at my file, then at me, then smirked like he'd already won. "Dawson," he said, dragging out my name. "You lost." "No, Sergeant," I replied. He nodded toward the row of bunks. "This isn't admin. This isn't PR. This is Recon. I know where I am," I said. That earned a few low chuckles. The team leader, Staff Sergeant Cole Mercer, stepped out of the office, eyes sharp. He didn't smile. He didn't sneer. He just looked at me like I was a new piece of equipment he wasn't sure he trusted. "Dawson," he said, "welcome to Bravo. You'll be attached until you prove you're useful." "Roger," I answered. Someone in the back muttered loud enough for me to hear. "Useful? She'll be gone in a month." I didn't respond, because arguing with disrespect is like trying to punch smoke. You don't win. You just waste air you'll need later. They didn't make it obvious at first. Not openly. Not enough to be written up. It was the small things. They never offered me a seat at briefing. They never handed me gear without tossing it like it was a chore. They spoke around me like I wasn't there. And when training started, they turned it into a test designed for failure. The first week was movement drills through dense forest, silent navigation, line spacing, hand signals. Mercer paired me with Corporal Dean Holt, a guy with confident eyes and a grin that didn't belong in serious places. He looked me up and down. "You ever carried a full ruck through mud for 16 miles? He asked. "Yes," I said. He smiled wider. "Sure. And I've been to the moon." That day, Holt picked the route, straight through a swampy patch that sucked boots down to the ankle. He pushed the pace just enough to make it miserable, then glanced back every time I slipped, like he was collecting evidence. I didn't complain. I adjusted. When my boot got stuck, I didn't yank. Yanking wastes energy. I shifted weight, broke suction, moved forward. When the strap on my pack loosened, I fixed it in 2 seconds without stopping. At mile 10, Holt started breathing harder. At mile 14, his grin was gone. At mile 16, we reached the checkpoint and Holt stumbled. I caught his ruck strap and steadied him without a word. He looked at me, surprised. I didn't say "told you so." I just drank water and waited for the next thing they'd throw. Mercer watched from the edge of the clearing, expression unreadable. When Holt walked away, Mercer approached. "You want to be here?" he asked quietly. "Yes, Staff Sergeant." "Then understand this," he said. "No one here will hand you respect. I'm not asking for it." He studied my face. "Good." Then he walked off. 3 weeks later, Bravo got a real mission. Not a training run. Not a simulated patrol. A live operation in Kestrel Province. Jungle foothills, river villages, hostile militia activity. Intel said a militia group had been shaking down civilians, stealing supplies, and executing anyone who resisted. One village leader had tried to report them and vanished. Our job wasn't just recon this time. It was find the hostages, confirm the militia's position, and guide in a rescue element. The team loaded into helicopters at midnight, rotors whipping rain into mist. Everyone moved with practice speed. No one spoke to me. They didn't need to. Missions erased ego fast. We inserted along a ridge line and moved through jungle that smelled like wet earth and crushed leaves. The humidity wrapped around us like a second skin. Visibility was a joke, 10 meters at best before foliage swallowed the world. Mercer led. Holt took point. I floated midline, watching angles, counting steps, listening to the jungle's rhythm. At 2:13, Holt froze and lifted his fist. Mercer crouched. What? Holt pointed. Tripwire. I saw it. Thin, almost invisible, tied low across the path. But I also saw something else. A second wire, higher, connected to a tree. A layered trap. If Holt cut the first, the second would trigger. I grabbed Holt's sleeve lightly, pointed with 2 fingers. His eyes narrowed. Mercer leaned closer, saw what I saw. For the first time, he looked at me like I belonged. Good catch, he whispered. Holt cut both wires carefully. The team bypassed. We moved. Minutes later, we heard voices ahead, low, rough, armed men laughing. Militia. Mercer signaled formation, and we crawled into a prone line overlooking a small clearing. In the clearing, 3 armed guards and a shack. Inside the shack, muffled crying. Hostages. Mercer whispered into the mic, eyes on. Confirm numbers. I scanned. For guards. Not 3. The 4th was hidden under a camo tarp near the rear, watching the approach route. If the rescue element rushed, he'd gun them down. I touched Mercer's shoulder and pointed. Mercer nodded slowly. Dawson, he whispered. Take him. My heart didn't race. It slowed. That's what happens when training becomes real. I shifted into position, lined up the shot through leaves, waited for the guard to lean into the open. I fired once. Suppressed. Clean. He dropped behind the tarp like his strings were cut. The other guards didn't even look up, because the jungle swallowed sound the way it swallowed mistakes. The rescue element hit 15 minutes later. The hostages were pulled out alive. No civilian casualties. No friendly casualties. Back at base, Holt stared at me while cleaning his weapon. You see that second wire? He asked. Yes. He hesitated, like the words were heavy. Good eyes, he said. It wasn't praise. It was the first crack in the wall. After that, missions kept coming. And with each one, I learned something important. People don't hate you because you're weak. They hate you because your presence forces them to question something they've been comfortable believing. Some men in Bravo had built their identity on being the toughest, the most capable, the only ones who could do this job. A woman standing beside them didn't threaten their skill. It threatened their story. So I let missions rewrite it. Mission, Night Shore. We tracked a smuggler route through mangroves. A patrol boat was supposed to intercept, but the boat never arrived. Because someone in the local command chain had been paid off. The smugglers moved in the dark with cargo that wasn't just weapons. It was medical supplies stolen from civilian clinics. Children downstream were dying because someone wanted profit. Mercer wanted to strike the smugglers immediately. I watched through optics and noticed their movement pattern. Too clean, too disciplined. Not smugglers. An escort team. Professional. We were being baited. I told Mercer quietly, this isn't a pickup. It's a trap. He stared at me. Then he trusted me. We waited, repositioned, and when the ambush sprung, when hidden shooters opened fire where we would have been, we were already gone. We caught the escort team's flank instead, pinned them, and forced surrender without a firefight that would have turned the mangroves into a massacre. Lives saved. Mission, River Glass. A convoy of civilians was moving through a valley. Militia planned to hit them at a bridge. We arrived early and found the militia's IED trigger, an improvised command line hidden under the bridge supports. I crawled under in cold water, cut it, and marked the device for EOD. When the civilians crossed, nothing happened. They never knew they'd been seconds from dying. Mission, Black Rain. We were sent to locate a missing patrol that had vanished in heavy jungle. We found them. 3 survivors, dehydrated, 1 wounded. The enemy was tracking them, closing in. We carried them out over 12 kilometers. Halfway out, Holt slipped in mud, almost losing the wounded man. I grabbed the casualty strap, pulled hard, steadied both. Holt looked at me and, for the first time, didn't look away. He nodded once. Respect. Not spoken. Earned. The mission that changed everything wasn't the hardest. It was the most unfair. We got intel about a militia commander known as Rook, a man who ordered village executions and then filmed confessions to justify them. He'd turned justice into theater. We finally got a lead. He was traveling with a small convoy near the hydro corridor. If he reached the facility, he could sabotage water gates and flood villages. We moved to intercept, Bravo sliding through jungle like a shadow. Then everything went wrong. A false call came over comms. Our own encryption. Bravo divert east. Target has shifted. Mercer hesitated. Confirms source. The voice replied instantly. Perfectly. Command confirms. Holt muttered. Sounds real. But it didn't feel real. It felt too clean. I watched the map, listened to the cadence of the voice. Then I noticed a tiny detail. The caller used Mercer's first name. No one on command net used first names. Not in the field. It was a fake. We're being redirected, I said quietly. It's a setup. Mercer's eyes narrowed. You sure? Yes. Holt scoffed. Come on. Mercer cut him off with a hand. In that moment, Mercer chose between tradition and truth. He chose truth. Hold route, Mercer ordered. We stay on original intercept. Minutes later, we reached the road bend and saw the ambush waiting, gunmen positioned where the fake diversion would have placed us. If Mercer had listened to the false comms, Bravo would have walked straight into it. Mercer looked at me. It wasn't gratitude. It was something deeper. Trust. The enemy adapted after that. They stopped underestimating me, which meant they started targeting me. During Operation Cold Vine, we took fire from a ridge. A bullet struck the rock inches from my head. Too close, too accurate. Counter-sniper. He wasn't shooting randomly. He was hunting me. Mercer ordered a withdrawal, but the team was pinned. A wounded soldier, Specialist Ortega, was trapped behind a fallen tree, bleeding, unable to move. Holt started to go for him. Mercer grabbed his vest. You'll die? Holt's face twisted. We can't leave him. Mercer's gaze flicked to me. I understood before he spoke. I was the only one who could solve it fast. I crawled into position, found the counter-sniper's glint in the canopy, and held my breath. He fired again, trying to force us down. His muzzle flash revealed him for half a second. That was all I needed. One shot. Silence. Holt sprinted to Ortega and dragged him back. Ortega lived. And when we reached base, Ortega walked up to me, shaking, and said the words that matter more than any medal. You saved my life. After that, the joke stopped. Not instantly, but gradually, like a disease losing strength. The final mission of that rotation was the one people would talk about without using my name. We finally found Rook again. He was holding civilians in a village schoolhouse, using them as shields while he prepared to flee. He had a radio jammer and a convoy waiting. If he escaped, he'd do it again. If we rushed, civilians would die. Mercer asked me one question over comms. Do you have a shot? I scanned the schoolhouse through my scope. Windows, shadows, movement. I could see Rook's outline behind a doorway, weapon raised. He stepped into view for a heartbeat. I could end him. But if I missed, he'd kill hostages. The only shot was one that required patience, so deep it felt like torture. I waited. 10 seconds. 20. 30. My muscles burned. Then Rook moved, pushing a hostage aside to clear his escape route. His head came into perfect alignment. I fired once. Rook dropped. His weapon clattered. The hostages screamed, then realized the shooting had stopped. Mercer's team rushed in, secured the building, and pulled civilians out alive. Justice wasn't loud. Justice was a single quiet moment that prevented the next massacre. Back at Bravo, the Team Bay felt different. Holt walked up first, awkward as if he didn't know how to be this kind of human. He held out a small patch, the Bravo Recon patch I'd never been given officially. Mercer says you earned it, he said. I stared at the patch. He cleared his throat. And I was wrong about you. I took it, nodding once. He hesitated, then added, quietly, we all were. The next day, Mercer called me into his office. He didn't waste words. You saved civilians. You saved soldiers. You prevented a major infrastructure hit. You exposed a comm spoof. You've done your job under pressure and kept doing it when people tried to break you. He slid a file across the desk. Recommendation for advanced school. Leadership track. Special designation. You want this? He asked. I looked at the paper, then back at him. Yes, I said. Mercer nodded once. Good, he said. Because you're going to set the standard here. When I walked back into the team bay, no one laughed. No one smirked. They looked up, met my eyes, and nodded, like I'd been there all along. Respect isn't given. It's forced into existence by results. And I'd written mine across every mission where someone went home alive. That night, I lay on my bunk and thought about the first day, the silence, the jokes, the pressure. Then I thought about the hostages who got to see sunrise, the soldiers who got to call home, the villages that didn't flood, the lives that didn't end. I closed my eyes and let the jungle's distant sound fade into memory. Tomorrow would bring another mission, another test. But now, when I walked into a room, they didn't see a problem. They saw a soldier, and that was enough. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Epic Recon Stories. Here we tell the missions that never made the headlines, the decisions made in silence, and the people who carried them. More stories are coming soon.